And there we are. We are recording. Hi, this is today. Today is the 4th of March. I'm Rabbi Brian. This is a Religion Outside the Box Saturday service. It's not only me, but I have lots of, if you're watching on YouTube, welcome. Glad that you're here. There are people watching on Facebook. Glad you guys are watching as well. And then I have a bunch of my friends who are all here. I'm going to switch the screen so we can all see all the people who are on Zoom. There's the people on Zoom. People on Zoom, give a wave, say hi to.
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Very good. And I'm going to go off of that screen. If you would like to, please hold. There we are. If you want an invitation to be able to join live and join all my friends who are in little Zoom boxes, if you follow this link, rotb.org/Saturday service, and you sign up for the Religion Outside the Box newsletter, you will get a link to that Zoom and you can join everyone. A few things I wanted to start with.
Good boy.
First, I wanted to start with, I had somebody who was new last week, and they assumed that I know each and every one of you who are on the Zoom screen and that we have met in person. And just as a reality check, if you are on the Zoom screen and you and I have never actually touched hands or been in the same place, would you put your hand up so people have an idea? Yeah, this is not a... Keep your hand up if... Okay, let's put our hands down. So this is a group of people. I know a lot of you because of we've spent time together on Zoom, but I don't know people in a way that anyway, that point's already been made. Let me do some follow-ups. There was a lot that happened last week, and I just want to see everyone's faces for a moment. Hi Greg, hi Ann, hi Eileen. I didn't say hi to you guys yet. Good morning, Alice and Chad and Lisa, and hi Moja, glad to see you too. So last week we talked, and I wanted to follow up. I had a thought about, I have a lot of thoughts. A lot has happened in the last week. Last week I brought this quote, which was from a Gestalt therapeutic understanding of shame, and I understood this quote much better after the service than I did during the service.
Plumbing and heating.
I'm gonna let me explain this way. I want to explain a little what I learned about shame. A long while ago, my friend Hugh taught me something. He said, it is precisely at the times that we are beating ourselves up, those are the moments where we need self-care and love. So let's start with that idea. It's exactly at the moments that we're beating ourselves up that we ought to be being kind to ourselves. And that idea hits in with shame. And the idea that is related to it, that was from that quote last week, Gestalt quote on shame, is that when we feel shame, it is a sign to us that we are in an environment, that our environment is love, forgiveness, deficient. I'm not really sure if that's how we spell deficient. It's how
Yes, it is.
Good job, me. It's how we spell deficient.
Even in Canada.
Thank you. Thank you. So this I think can help us to if you're feeling some shame about something, it might be that you've done something wrong, but it might also be that your environment is love deficient, that you're in a group, in a situation, in a society maybe, that is not open and accepting enough to take you as you truly are. That's that idea. So I want to move on, but I also want to make sure that we get this idea. I didn't look up ahead of time how to spell the word deficient. I did my best on it and I got it right. But I knew I wasn't going to feel shame if I got it wrong. Why?
Because the environment.
Because you're in a love environment.
Because I'm in an environment that has enough love in it. If you find yourself in an environment that does not have enough love in it, there's always one way you can get a little bit more love into that environment. It's kind of a trick answer here. But if you're in an environment and they're not being loving and kind to you, you always have the option
To love yourself.
right? To add a little more love in. Joe, I'm not really sure what that meant.
Leave.
Oh, okay. If you find yourself in an environment, if you find yourself in an environment that is not filled with love, you can leave. And you can do that physically or you can do that mentally. Dissociation is not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's great to not to be able to leave. Okay. Thank you. Glad we went back over that. There was a homework assignment. Oh, look. That should bring some intrigue. We're going to play a game with dice in a moment. Can I get an ooh or an ah or something?
Ooh.
Okay.
Something.
Ah.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys. There was a homework assignment about oops. There was a homework assignment that when we make a mistake, can we just say to ourselves, now I'm not talking about a mistake like running 5 people over with your car, right? I'm talking a small, just like 3 people. It was supposed to be a joke. I see like 2 people laughing. I'll take it. When you make a mistake like making a vehicular manslaughter joke and it doesn't go over well, to be able to say to myself, oops, that didn't work so well, as opposed to going down the rabbit hole of I'm a bad person, something's wrong with me. So let's puppy.
Hey.
Those of you who don't know, that's Sparky. He is my meditation instructor. My goodness gracious, can that dog meditate like nobody's business? Just unbelievable. So there's a game with dice, and it's called Petals on the Rose. And I'm going to try it a few times. I'm going to toss the dice, and we're going to get a certain combination of dice that come up on. And the answer to this right now would be 2. And there's always going to be a numerical answer to what's going on. And this roll is 2. And here it would be also 2. Let's see if I can come up with something a little different. Here the number would be 5. And I'm going to try a few more and see if somebody can get the idea of what's going on. Here the answer is 4. I don't know if anyone's getting an idea on. I'll try another one and we'll see what comes up. Anyone want to take a guess on that one?
4.
That one's an 8. Oh, hold on a second. I see my friend. Hold on. I see Rita has her hand raised. Rita, is that an accidental? That was an intentional?
No, that was going back to your concern about people not getting your jokes. I have switched to this on Zooms with people that don't know me well.
You have a sign that actually says joke alert on it.
Yes. When I do a joke and there's silence, I lift this up.
Well, I appreciate it. If you would hold that up when I'm making a joke. I had...
No, you should hold it up. No,
I can't. I had students who said to me, they say, Rabbi, we don't always know when you're kidding.
Yeah, that's when you do that.
And I would say, it's easy to know when I'm kidding. My lips are moving.
I like that.
Okay. I'm going to leave the dice game for a second. We'll come back to it. because I wanted to talk about something else as a bigger piece before we get into this. Hey, hi. Sometimes we all get into topics and it's not comfortable. If we had a straight liturgy that we were always following, this might be a little bit of a safer thing for us to do. But sometimes we do things that are a little uncomfortable. And we had that last week, and I've spoken. John, I thank you for helping to illuminate this point. Last week we had an uncomfortable situation where John had written a welcome that I had asked him to read, and he read out the welcome. And to no fault of his own, what John had said triggered most all of the Jews in the room. There was no way. I don't think there was any way for John to have to John, and John, correct me if I'm wrong here, but to John, what he was saying was an open, inviting, welcoming, and what he heard back, it was in the chat, and was heard back was what you said was not welcoming and inviting. What you said was the opposite of that. And it brings up this topic of Tamakatri Roy. The meaning of communication is in the response elicited regardless of intention. The meaning of communication is in the response elicited regardless of intention. That it's not, that the communication isn't what you mean to have said, but it's in what the other person heard. And I'm going to zoom in on an example of this. I'm really sorry to tell you this one, because it's going to affect how you speak to people from now on. The difference between a request and a demand. Here we go. The difference between a request and a demand is in how the person who heard it assumes it. The difference between a request and a demand is in the understanding of the person who heard it to feel as though they would be punished if they did not do the thing. That's a little complicated. Let me try it with some other words. Jane says, "Would you take out the trash?" She says that to me. Is it a request or a demand? She says, "Honey, would you please take out the trash?" The please, that's a red herring. That has nothing to do with it.
That's right.
It's a request
It does.
or a demand depending on if I think she's going to withhold or be cross, or she's going to punish me in some way if I don't do it. If I feel like I will be held, if something negative will happen to me because I do not do the thing, it is a demand, no matter how nicely she says it. The difference between a request and a demand is in how the person who hears it feels they would be treated if they did not do it. Now, there are some obvious problems with this. How do you know how the other person's going to hear it? How can you control that the other person's going to think that you're going to be withholding or judgmental or punishing if they don't do the thing? The difference between a request and a demand is in the person who hears it's thinking that they will be punished or not for not doing it. Give me some. Yeah, go ahead, John.
I've done kind of this one before in terms of I choose. There's nothing I can do to make you angry I can just increase the likelihood that you will choose to get angry if I say something or do something a certain way. The same
Correct.
thing is here. If I say something in a particular way, thinking it's going to go in one direction, just as you described from last week, and it goes a different direction, that was the choice of the people.
Correct.
And-
Correct.
Okay, so my intention may have been for one thing to happen and something else happened. That's just the way things happen. And it's the same if you say something to me, I choose how to react to it.
Correct. And we can't control the other person, unfortunate or fortunate as that may be. Alice, go ahead.
Well, the deliverer of the message, their attitude has everything to do with it. So if I were to say, Rabbi, in a forceful, sort of angry way or upset way, or most of us who have partners or spouses in the house for a long time, we get used to their either kindness or not so much. And, for instance, my wife can say something the same words one way, and I get it that it's something she didn't like.
Right. I can say something as pleasantly as I want to, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to hear it as a demand. What I have come to do, I have this little hack that I think should help, is now I've trained myself when I catch myself asking someone for something, hey, do you mind if we extend our meeting? I'm talking to someone. Do you mind if we extend our meeting by 15 minutes? Or do you mind if we push our meeting back 15 minutes? I then add in the phrase, you can say no, that's perfectly all right. I add in, I'm trying to make it sound like a request. Now, I don't know if they still think of it as a demand. Well, the rabbi asked me to do it, I better do it. All right. I'm gonna
also has a lot to do with at the moment current feeling of the recipient of the request or demand.
Correct. If I'm in a bad mood, I might hear what Jane says, honey, would you take out the garbage? And I'm going to say, she's always bossing me around.
Yep.
Go ahead, Lexi.
I'm having issue with saying the choice of the recipient on how they're going to react.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that has to do with both what it's not really how you react isn't necessarily always a choice. It's just what you're hearing in that moment. It's what you bring, how you were brought up, your cultural. It's not making it true. I am purposely going to respond in this way.
Thank you for adding that.
Because choice is if you have a choice of fire X, you don't know the person. You can be I understand this person's intention, but you're still hearing it because of what you are, your history, your
absolutely
everything. It's not an active choice. It's just you hear something and you have a reaction, or the person in authority. You can be I understand that you're giving me a choice, but at the same time, do I really have a choice because this person is an authority figure? So is it really a choice or not? I don't think choice is the right word in response. When
thank you for elucidating on helping for clearing that out. Thank you, Lexi. Yeah, it's not. I don't always have a choice. I do have a choice to believe my thinking or not. But that's on a higher level. Let me go to Alex, and then I'm gonna switch us back. Go, Alex Marcus.
I was just gonna say kind of what she was saying was that I think how a person responds or hears, whether it's a request or demand, a lot of it plays in how much power you have over that person.
Correct. That's exactly it. If you're the boss and you ask someone, would you? Is anybody there? Hold on a second. I think that sounded. If you're the boss and you say, hey, would you mind staying late tonight? you have to check your power there and see, is that it sounded to your, if it sounds to you like a request, oh, of course I'm making a request, then we have to be careful that it's not being heard as a demand. You know, it's okay to say no, but I'm going to ask you, can you stay 15 minutes late tonight? It's a very big difference. I want to get back to the idea going up one level. The meaning of communication is in the response elicited regardless of intention. John's intention was to welcome everyone last week. The meaning of the words came out a little differently. And there's an idea in Buddhism that and I can't think of the word right now. Hold on a second. Come on, brain. I want to say moksha, but it's not moksha. It's I can't think of the word. But there's something, there's a heat behind what we say. There can be a heat behind what we say. We could have said to John, and I wish I had, hey, John, it sounds like you're trying to welcome everyone, but I'm getting confused because you used this word, and this word was really off-putting. That's with very little heat behind it, as opposed to saying, what the fuck, John? That wasn't a welcoming. That has a little bit more heat behind it. There was a day, and I knew I understood. I still can't remember what this word is. If anyone has that word in Hemsha, something sha.
Hemsha.
Is it Hemsha?
Hemsha. No, do no harm.
Alhamsha and also Sanjiva.
No, that's not the word I'm going for.
Okay.
Anyway, I so wish this was like part of a great lesson that I was planning, and I was going to pretend to forget something, and then it was all going to come back and it's going to be part of a moral. It's not. Dang it. But what's good is we still have about 40 minutes left, and I know my brain, it usually is under 40 minutes that the thing comes back up. I said to my father once, and I remember it clearly, I remember where we were driving, and I said to him, oh, Dad, go fuck yourself. Come on, man. That's just not cool. And if you can hear in the way that I said it, I didn't say, oh, come on, Dad, now go fuck yourself. That's not cool. It's a very different way of saying it. The meaning of communications in the response elicited regardless of intention. John, I know you didn't mean, you were trying to give a welcome. And I know your heart, and I hope that we can understand that, boy, there was no intended harm in what John said. And that our being triggered by what he said was the opposite of, right? It was the opposite of what he was going for. I had another example on that, but I'm going to... okay. Yeah, Emily, go ahead.
I was going to say, I remember when I was a teenager, one time my father said to me, would you like to go get my shoes? And the first time I did this, and I said, I don't want to, but I will. And I got up to go get it, and whoa, did I get it.
So he thought he was making a request, but it was quite clearly a demand. It was not a
request.
It was a demand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John, and then Al.
I just wanted to share. I used to do an exercise when I was teaching elementary school, and kids would be provided, the class would be provided with a thing called a feeling wheel. And it was a large circle, and it was divided into 12 sections, and each section had 2 words on it. And one was a lighter version, and the other was a deeper version of emotions or feelings. I would read a scenario and ask them to put their finger on the feeling that they would have, they imagine having in that situation. And the importance of the exercise was to point out to them that in identical situations, many people are going to have different feelings from each other. That goes back to the concept of what was home like. Okay, home is going to persuade you in one way or another, or society in general, or any of those kinds of things. So
thank you.
The concept of an active choice, and that was a word I avoided using, was active. When I say we choose the feelings, it's less of an active choice than it is a passive one.
That goes back to what Lexi was
recognize
saying.
that
Yeah.
in identical situations, different people will feel differently.
Right. Thank you. And Al, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out what a neat environment we have here, in that when John did his welcome, people felt comfortable saying, "Hey, that didn't sit well with me." And there wasn't that sense of shame.
Al. Yeah.
There wasn't that sense of shame that I didn't feel that anybody was being shamed. Just that people felt comfortable, like, "Hey, I didn't take it that way."
Thank you. Thank you, Al.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up. Also, folks, I'm pretty certain that what you are watching, you who are here, this is quite an experimental idea for a religious group. The diversity of beliefs in this, granted there's some commonalities, like we all have internet access, but the diversity of beliefs in this group are tremendous. Not only that that we all come from different belief structure and we all have different beliefs, but that we're able to share them and not just hold them secretly inside is pretty. This is pretty remarkable. So what I was going for is, yeah, it's gonna get messy sometimes, and that's all right. I have a quote to bring to that here. I just came across this quote by it's known as Cantor's Law, and it says this: in the middle, everything looks like a failure. According to Rosabeth Moth Cantor, professor at Harvard Business School, in the middle, everything looks like failure. Everyone feels motivated by beginnings, and obviously we love happy endings, but it is in the middle where the hard work happens. And everything in the middle looks like failure. This one's really important to me right now. You all know, or if you're new, let me tell you, I'm working on a book, and the dang second section done collapsed on me last week. Just oops. And I found this quote: everything in the middle looks like failure. That's how the book feels right now, but it's just because it's in the middle. Okay, let me get back to our dice game. The total on this one is 4. Oh, I have an extra die in there. The total is still 4. That might give you a hint.
There were only 3 before.
So either which way here, it's still the score on the dice is 4. Here the score on the dice is 2. Anyone else know how to play Pedal on the Rose? Pedals around the rose? Anyone else see that there's a 2 here? Is that just me?
Another one.
I'll try again, and let's see if you can come up with, let me get something new.
2?
That is a 2. Who said 2?
I did. So it's...
Well, don't tell them what the rule of the game is yet, Ron. This one has a score of
2, 3.
That one's a 4, actually. Yeah, I'm going to leave the 5 there and re-roll. Now it's got a score of... Do you have it, Ron?
5?
No, that one's an 8.
No, okay. I don't... I was wrong.
Okay, that's all right. Let me try a few more. This one is also a 4. I'm going to re-roll just this one and see what happens. Oh, that's the same number. Now the score is a 2. Let me time out and remind us the point of this game. The point of this game is to see what's happening. This is metacognition. Paying attention to what's going on in your brain as this is happening. Are you feeling any moments of, I should be getting this game, I'm not?
Nope. Yeah.
Sure.
I got some nods, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Perhaps you're holding yourself to an unrealistic level that you should be able to understand something that you can't understand, or you don't yet understand, or that there's a trick that you just haven't been told yet. They keep coming up the same. Come on, Brian. There we go. This one, that's clearly a 2.
Okay.
I'll give you a hint. Here's the
2 5 to
hint
1.
that helped me to know how the game played. The name of the game is called Petals Around the Rose. Called Petals Around the Rose. This one's a 2.
Yeah.
It's a 2 if I remove the 4. It's a 2 if I remove the 4. And it's a 2 if I remove the 2.
Oh.
Try one more. This one has a score of 0.
Got it.
Who's got it? Who's got a guess?
I do.
All right, this one is a...
Craps.
0.
It's a 0.
Yeah. Okay.
This one is a...
4.
It's a 4, Meg. You're absolutely right.
All right.
Again, the game here is to just watch what's happening inside of you as Meg seems to understand it, Ron seems to understand it, and you don't.
Whoa.
Just time out. The game is to see what's going on in your head. Do you go towards, fuck that rabbi and his bullshit games? Does it go straight to anger? I'm not going to show the camera, but all right, just secretly, how many of you were going towards fuck this rabbi and this bullshit game? I appreciate your honesty. There we go. Oh, this is a high scoring one.
10.
Not 10, Meg. 8.
8.
8.
I can't add.
Yeah, that's 8. Yeah.
Wow.
How many blooms on that flower I just drew?
5.
5 petals.
How many of these have petals? How many of these are flowers?
5. 2 of them.
Just the 3 and the 5. So the answer to this one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The answer to this one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You only score if it's got a petal in the middle, if it's got a flower shape to it.
Oh.
So this one would be scored as
0.
0. There's nothing in the middle, so it doesn't count.
It's 0.
But the other, you got 2 1s.
I do have 2 1s, but they don't have any petals coming off of them.
Oh.
Oh.
Oh, it doesn't count if they don't have any petals. Oh.
This is the highest score we've ever seen.
10.
10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
10.
8, 9, 10.
11.
10.
10.
10. Good. Okay.
10.
10, yeah.
Let me go back to this. If you start to feel shame, and hopefully in this game, and yes, small amount of shame was added for your learning here, if you feel a little bit of shame, it means what?
There's no petal on your rose.
That's one interpretation.
Thanks, Ray.
Say it again, Gord.
Oh no, I was just appreciating Ray's comment. There's no petal on your
Okay.
rose.
So if you're feeling a little bit of shame, it gives you an opportunity to say, now imagine this game in a different scenario. Imagine I said, roll the dice, and I go, what the hell's wrong with you? Why don't you see that it's 6? Or I roll the dice and I say, can you give it another try? What do you think's going on? Where do you think the pedals are? In either one case, I'm adding to the shame in the environment. The other one, I'm trying to minimize as much shame as I can. The take home for next week is this. When we feel shame, can you feel that in yourself? When you feel shame, it means what's going on in the environment.
There's not love.
There's not a sufficient amount of love in the environment. That's what it means to feel shame. This is an interpretation. This is a Gestalt understanding of shame. Shame means that we're in an environment where we don't feel
loved.
We don't feel loved. We don't feel supported. We don't feel like it's okay to be us. And so what can we do?
Love us.
We can pause for a moment and say, well, isn't that interesting? And oughtn't I love myself a little bit more? Okay. Let me take a break for a moment, and then we're going to get to a whole nother thing. Maria, you have some prayers for us today?
I do.
Would you share?
I will share. These are the names of people to lift up and send positive energy to. Greg, Francis, Ken and Joe, James, Abbas, Philip, David, Carla, Pat, John, Donna, Bill, James Wilson, Norma, Jim Hansen, Craig and Chrissy Lavielle, Jim Brooks in spirit and Andrew Vasnick, Wendy, Hugh Cook, Jeff, Arena Bat Sarah, Lakiri Bat Egulansi, Nora Bat Miriam, Nishami Bat Miriam, Dina, Rena, Kat, the Cook family, Alicia, Alicia's friend, April, Iggy, Jill, Steve, Laura Henderson, Juan and Carol, Beverly Kennedy, Greta, Paris, Emma and Robert, the Feder family, and if there is another person in our community we can offer light and love to, please put their name in the chat and I will add them to the list in the clubhouse. And for the people who aren't named, but who are in our thoughts, we send them light and love as well.
And let's take a minute of time now until 8:40. Well, thank you guys. I want to bring us to something on how do we deal with, let me change screens. How do we deal with our inner critic? How do we deal with the shame that we feel on the inside? And there is a 5-stage. Oh, hold on. Ellis, you have your hand up, my friend.
I just wanted to share something that happened with me last week at our church. I was a platform assistant and with a microphone, and there were some changes that, because my brain says, figure it all out and know exactly what you're going to do. So I got up and the microphone didn't work and some other changes were going on. And I felt like for a couple of minutes, like I just really failed to do what I intended to do. So afterwards I thought about it and I decided I wasn't due any shame or guilt, because I was operating in an environment that I know that I fit in the Enneagram. I'm a 1 on the Enneagram, and I know what that personality is. So I just chalked it up to, that's who I am, but I'm not guilty.
It's a beautiful idea of forgiving ourselves. I saw a snarky t-shirt that reminds me of that. And the t-shirt said, "In my defense, I was left unsupervised."
Like that.
And it's a bit snarky, but I think it gets to the same point. And Bob, you've talked about this in the past, that when we are doing a thing, we're only doing it as best as we can with the information that we can, and we should not be held we should not be held responsible for knowing the things we don't know. How can we know the things we don't know? We can't be held responsible to know that the thing we didn't think was going to cause a reaction caused a reaction. If we thought it was going to cause a reaction, we wouldn't have done it. Bob, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm wondering if there's a difference between shame and disappointment.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Meg.
Disappointment is just sort of a sadness. And shame has that whole guilt, yuck.
Yeah, that shame gives us an idea we have done, that not only have we done something wrong, but there is something internally, intrinsically wrong in us.
Yeah.
And that it's characterological. And this was, Steve pointed out a few weeks ago, was that guilt is I did something wrong, disappointment. Shame is I am wrong. And there's a really big difference. And that's why I wanted to play the game with the dice, was to show us ain't nobody should have felt. Nobody should feel there's something intrinsically wrong with them. But if in a game of dice where you don't know what the rules are, you feel there's something wrong with me, all the more so if in this simple example where it obviously has nothing to do with you, you never learned how to play this game before. If in that case we can feel shame, oh my God, is shame pervasive, and is it going to get us in other situations if it can hit us in a silly dice game? Carol.
That t-shirt you just mentioned.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be held guilty because I wasn't supervised.
It says, in my defense, I was left unsupervised. That was the t-shirt.
That's what the 6-year-old said when he shot his teacher.
Right.
He was, in fact, unsupervised. He had been supervised up till that day. So I think he doesn't have to feel guilty because he happens to be nuts. But his parents have to feel guilty because they didn't supervise him that day.
Right. Right.
I mean, I think there are people who should feel shame and guilt.
Right.
And there are some people who are incapable of feeling guilt.
And we are assuming that that nobody in this group is a sociopath who has no feelings of shame or guilt. We do need some shame and guilt, as my professor David Ellenson said. You can't just pee and poop anywhere. We have to have some shame to keep our society running. You can't just do what you want. Shempa. That's the word. Shempa. That was the freaking word. It's going to be exactly 20 minutes since before when I told you I could remember the Buddhist word. Shempa is the word for heat. Okay, sorry. I know I feel a little bit better. My timing there was a little bit off. I apologize, Carol. But yeah. Okay, wait. I wanted to teach a thing. I want to teach a thing. Hey, folks, can I teach you a thing?
Sure.
I want to teach you a thing. How many of you play the French horn? Just me.
you.
Just me. Okay. And the reason I play the French horn is because I've been teaching about learning since before I started playing the French horn. And I would always start with, how many of you play the French horn? And the answer was always 0. And I say, well, if you wanted to learn to play the French horn, how would you go about doing that? And the answer is, you would start and you would have to have a teacher like I had who did an amazing amount of hand holding. And this is going to work for anything we want to learn, French horn or how to be kind to ourselves. At first, we can't do it. We need an amazing amount of hand holding. At the very end, we can do the thing fluidly. Let me zoom out for a moment.
Wouldn't you have to have a French horn first?
It definitely does help to play the French horn, to have a French horn. Thank you. So we tend to think of learning as binary, that you either can do the thing or you can't, and it's not. There are 3 stages in between. 1, hand holding, you need somebody to do everything with you, and 5, fluidity, you can do it perfectly on your own. Bob, you have a question? Your hand's up, bud.
Yeah, I was just wondering how you could learn how to play the French horn if he was holding your hand.
Joke sign.
Thank you for the joke sign, Rita. Good.
Well played, Bob.
I'm going to add in 2, 3, and 4. When we're learning to do something, and it can be anything, being kind to ourselves, French horn, learning to drive, that in between, oh, I did this wrong. This is you can't do it at all. Start with you can't do it at all. And then you get to hand holding.
Right.
You can do it, but you need somebody to... And literally, the French horn teacher put my fingers on the key and helped me to figure out where my left hand's supposed to be and where my right hand's supposed to be. Can't do it at all is 1. 2 is hand holding. Brian, remember, in order to play the note A, you have to hold down 2 fingers. Okay, that's part 3. You get a hint. You need somebody outside of you to give you a hint. That's stage 3. Stage 4 is you get a hint, but you can give yourself the hint. When you're learning to do something, so the French horn teacher says, here, Brian, do you remember when you play an A, which 2 fingers that is? And they're giving me a hint. And then I can move myself up to it and I say, don't tell me, don't tell me, don't tell me. I remember I got to play an A, and A is 1 and 2 because 1 plus 2 is A. Okay, so you give yourself a hint. I will point out, though, because now I play the French horn, the keys on the French horn are actually optional. You can have the right keys for a G and still play an A. It doesn't really matter. It's the French horn. There are no rules to it whatsoever. It's insane. Stage 1, you can't do it. Stage 2, you can do the thing, but you need extreme hand holding. Stage 3, you need somebody to give you a hint from the outside. Stage 4, you can do it, but you can give yourself a hint. You talk yourself through it. And stage 5, you can do it perfectly fluidly without needing any help. So being kind to yourself when you feel shame. Feeling kind to yourself when you feel shame, adding in a little extra love because we don't have enough love. I lost that page here. We find ourselves in an environment where love and forgiveness is deficient, and we want to add in more love. How many of you do this fluently, without having to think about it? How many of you are able to immediately, when you find yourself feeling a bit of shame, say, oh, I'm in a place where I need to get a little more love? I don't think we do this fluently. Not yet. This is a mess, but where do you do it? So you find yourself in a situation where you're feeling a bit of shame. We're not yet at fluidly. Are you able to give yourself a hint yet? Or are you still at the stage and no judgment in it? Or are you still in the stage where you need someone from the outside, like a handsome rabbi, to say, hey, when you find yourself filled with shame, maybe you can add in a little bit of extra love.
Mm-hmm.
I would say a lot of us are at stage 3 here. We need someone outside of us to remind us. Here's the bad news. Let me make sure we understand this. Okay, there are 5 stages to learning. 1, can't do it at all. 5, can do it fluently. What are the ones in between? Number 4 is?
Self-hint.
Self-hint.
You give yourself a hint. Number 3?
Handsome rabbi hint.
Hint from a rabbi. And 2, you need somebody to handhold you all the way through it. A lot of us are here. Now, there's an unfortunate human thing. Have you ever been driving and you, like, I remember this situation where I was driving and a semi truck started to merge over into my lane and I had nowhere to go except to, like, get onto the shoulder really quickly because I didn't want to get hit. So I got onto the shoulder and I'm starting to, and I'm talking to myself, and I said, put the car in park, and I'm telling myself, put the car in park, and so I put the car in park, and then I tell myself, breathe, just breathe a little bit, and I start to breathe a little bit, and I say, take your foot off the brake and try to relax, and I'm talking myself all the way through what I need to do, because when we are in a time of stress, driving, which I do naturally at a level 5, goes down to a level 4 where I now have to give myself hints because I've been stressed. When you're stressed, you go from being able to do something fluidly to having to give yourself hints. If I was only at stage 4 of driving and having to give myself hints and I was stressed out, I'd go down to level 3 where I'd need someone else to help me out. If I was at 3, I'd go to 2. 2 goes down to 1. You understand the math. If we are at the place where when we experience shame, we need someone outside us to remind us that we are worthy of love, we have a small problem. Because we're at level 3. And if we're at level 3 and we experience shame, what's going to happen?
Go down to 2.
You'll go down to 2. And what's the problem with being at 2 is you don't have the resource. Which is why we played the dice game, was to practice so that we can get ourselves to the point. We need to fight ourselves. We need to fight with the world to get to be better at something so that when we're stressed out, we might have When we're shamed, who's not going to fall down a level? Of course you are. So we need to work really hard to remember when we are in shame, we are in an environment that is love deficient. We need to know this at a level 5. Or at least be able to say it at a level 5. So that when we're stressed, we can talk ourselves into it again. So that being said, my dear friends, what's the thing you have to keep in mind? Can you iterate the words that are under my hand to yourself? And if you can't, that's okay. We just
Love
need
yourself.
to work at it. That when we feel
Shame.
when we
Shame.
feel shame, see if you can answer it yourself.
Love yourself.
When
Love
you
yourself.
experience shame, add
Be
in,
kind to yourself.
be kind to yourself, or just realize, hey, I'm in a love deficient situation. Just being able to recognize it is going to be a huge boon to us. To be able to recognize I'm in a situation where I'm not getting all the love I deserve. Okay?
I love that.
Thank you, Rob. I have a few announcements, and then there's going to be a quiz. I'll tell you exactly what the quiz is.
No quiz.
And here it is. I'm going to make it the non-shameful, everyone passes and it's open notes. Because it's got to be in a situation where you feel shaming doesn't work. It works to make people feel bad and to keep them from going pee-pee and poo-poo anywhere they want. But it's not a way of helping people grow. Okay, let me get to my announcements. First announcement. Oh, this one here. Pretending you're okay is easier than having to explain to everyone why you're not. I'm not sure I believe that. Pretending you're okay is easier than having to explain to everyone why you're not. I would add in, it's easier in the short term.
Yes.
It's efficient.
It's efficient.
But it's really not long-term efficient. It's not a good idea. Which brings me to this announcement that I make every week. Y'all know what that one says?
It's okay not to be okay.
It's okay not to be okay. A few other announcements. I want to thank anyone who's in the Tuesday group. If you follow the same link, Tuesday 11 a.m. Pacific time, will bring you to the Tuesday group. Tuesday group helped me to work out a lot of what you saw here today, and it was messy AF on Tuesday. It wasn't pretty.
Right now, I'm having on
Mom,
my phone.
Mom, I hear you. You're not on mute.
I muted her.
Thank you for muting my mom. Okay.
Sorry, Mom.
Sorry, Mom. Other announcements. Our friend James, I have a dear friend who is in prison. He just got moved to Pelican State Supermax, which is not a pretty thing. If you've never written to James, Alex, if you would put James's address in the chat. He is allowed 6 stamps if you would. His supplies do not follow him for another 3 weeks or so. So he is in a new location without any of his stuff. If you could send him some stamps, he's allowed up to 5 envelopes at a time. And just a note saying, hey, James, moving sucks. And anything you want to write, please write to James. That's it for announcements. I have we're at 9 o'clock. I'm going to extend for a moment and just say this. I am so delighted to be with all of you. I think what we are doing is amazing. This idea of taking religion and doing it where we're getting to the core of really large topics like shame, and giving you, and you helping, and it's not that I have the answers, and you guys in your sharing, you're helping to give us tools so that we can go through this life with a little less shame and a little more love. And it's quite
Amen.
a beautiful thing. So I thank you for participating and being a part of this. I'm going to stop the recording after I switch to the screen so everyone can wave goodbye. Wave goodbye, friends.